Einen Moment bitte. Hallo und willkommen bei RJ. Heute spreche ich nicht sehr gut Deutsch und wir haben ein Paket aus Deutschland. Make sure to use code RJTRAINS at trains.com for $10 off any order $50 or more.
And here they are all the way from Germany from a store called Model Bahn Union. We have a couple of German passenger cars here on RJ's Trains. And here they are out of the box. It is two of the Lenz O-Gauge Deutsche Reichsbahn Reko-Wagens. These things are just gorgeous. The end detailing, the interior, you've got all the different little seats, support poles. This is the first class area or just different colored seats. Just super, super detailed interiors on these. And they just look fantastic. Super detailed. A bunch of legible detailing here on the bottom, picked out these separately applied, valves and whatnot. These are just gorgeous, absolutely stunning. And these do have lighting, but it's currently set up for 2-rail, so they won't have lights when I run them around the layout. But we'll work on that eventually. These are just stunning, stunning cars. And for anybody curious, this is the end of the box. The Lenz Reko-Wagen. I got two of these, just two different row numbers.
All right, so I have changed out of my German soccer jersey back in my usual cello pullover. I apologize to all of the Germans that I offended with my terrible German, but I thought it'd be funny for the video. Anyways, so I'm sure a lot of you guys are thinking at this point, hey, RJ, why did you order two very expensive German passenger cars from a German train store and have them shipped across an ocean when MTH here in America produced passenger cars as well as freight cars for their European steam locomotives? And well, they did and they didn't. Let's talk about that real quick. So MTH has made two sets of European passenger cars. They've made the Orient Express, which would have been hauled through Germany on its way to Istanbul, as well as the Rheingold set. And you might be thinking, RJ, isn't that perfect for your Bavarian, the high-speed passenger locomotive that pulled both the Orient Express as well as the Rheingold Express in Germany? And you're thinking, wouldn't it be flawed there? The Bavarians were used for those trains. The problem is the paint scheme on the locomotive. So it is painted up in its Royal Bavarian Railways paint scheme, which is how the locomotive would have looked prior to World War I. After World War I, under the Weimar Republic, the railroads were consolidated into what became the Deutsches Reichsbahn, Deutsche Bahn today. Anyways, the Rheingold Express didn't exist until the late 1920s, and the blue and cream Orient Express cars likewise also didn't exist until the late 1920s, which means in real life, this Bavarian in this green paint scheme would have never have pulled those passenger cars. Similarly, my BR44, which is a much later locomotive built around World War II, was mainly used for freight trains, so likewise would have never pulled either the Orient Express or the Rheingold Express. So if I wanted accurate passenger cars, I couldn't look at those MTH sets. Of course, speaking of the BR44 and freight trains, MTH did make some freight cars, specifically these beer wagons, which look great. In fact, I actually already own one of them. The problem is, at least in my head, is all of those beer wagons that they made, they are all Swiss. They're meant to go with the Swiss crocodiles. So once again, I am left with no accurate freight cars for the freight locomotive. So I was thinking of my options. So my first option was to look to see if any pre-World War I era passenger cars have ever been made in German O scale. And the answer to that is also no. So that was a dead end. And the closest I could get to accurate passenger cars for when this was in service, pre-World War I, were these 1970s wooden Orient Express passenger cars made in Italy that are currently listed on eBay for close to $5,000. And I am not that stupid when it comes to spending money on this hobby. Then the ideas really started cranking in my head. And in fact, one of these Bavarians are actually in service at a railway museum in Bavaria. And so there in Bavaria, so you'll see both the Bavarian as well as the BR44 that is preserved, pulling rakes of these passenger cars from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s that operated in Germany. So I figured for the time being that, having some post-war German passenger cars as for my German engines to operate in excursion style service on my layout would be just fine. Eventually, in the future, I'd also like to have a nice German freight train for the BR44, but that is way down the line. I think the immediate goal is getting a couple of these passenger cars, so I have like a nice 4 or 5 car set, but that's a future RJ problem. All right, that was one heck of a rant. I will let you guys watch these beautiful cars be pulled around the layout by both the Bavarian as well as the BR44. But before we do that, I just want to say thank you very much, everybody, for liking, subscribing, and watching this video. And I'd like to hear your thoughts down in the comments. What do you guys think on these passenger cars? Paid Golden Gate Depot prices, and I think they match, if not exceed, Golden Gate Depot quality. So really exciting stuff, really exciting to grow the European collection here on RJTRAINS, and look forward to see where this part of my collection goes in the future.
Das waren heute sicher 400 Kilometer. Da müssen wir noch eine Nachschau machen. wir noch einen nachschauen.